Thanks for tuning into the Urban School Podcast. I'm back with more NFL news. Now, watching this Cleveland Browns Shedeur Sanders situation had me feeling a way about just the nature of the league and what the league is and what the league probably always will be. And I'll talk about that in a little bit, but most will say Shedeur Sanders being drafted by the Cleveland Browns, he should be grateful that they drafted him in the fifth round after he was projected a first round pick, that he should be grateful for the opportunity. But we know this opportunity wasn't about opportunity. It was more about selling tickets and selling jerseys because the Cleveland Browns were not able to do that any other way. And I say that because who was the quarterback coming into the season for the Cleveland Browns? They had Joe Flacco and Dylan Gabriel and a couple other quarterbacks that they ended up, releasing or trading, which Joe Flacco was in that bunch. So they weren't going to sell tickets with Joe Flacco at the helm. They weren't going to sell tickets with Dylan Gabriel at the helm, and they definitely wasn't going to do it with whatever's left of Deshaun Watson. So it was about selling tickets, being controversial. So I believe they made a decision to say, all right, if he's still in at the fifth round, we'll take him because we know the league colluded against getting Shedeur there because of his um, perceived personality or his perceived arrogance that they say, which I'll get into a little bit in a little bit as well when you talk about that stuff. But we know that the league colluded against Shedeur Sanders, i.e., what they did to a Colin Kaepernick because of their individuality. And in NFL, they don't want you to have individuality. They want you to be robotic, especially if you're a quarterback. They want you to be very robotic, very stiff, very candid. You can't have any confidence. And if you do have a confidence like a Johnny Manziel or Baker Mayfield, you just can't be black when you do it. And that's essentially what it's coming down to. And when Baker Mayfield was doing it, they criticized him, but he was still able to get jobs. When Johnny Manziel did it, he was able to win the Heisman and get drafted in the first round, and coincidentally by the Cleveland Browns. So it shows you the correlation there because they were about selling tickets then when they drafted Johnny Manziel. They're about tickets now when they drafted Shedeur Sanders. Despite those guys, having talent and being in the Heisman runnings throughout their career, but we know that Cleveland was more about a dog and pony show because they don't expect to win anything really in Cleveland, even though they paid Deshaun Watson that exorbitant amount of money. I think at one point they were trying to win, but then after a while they was just like, let's just go back to what we know, and that's the dog and pony show. So um, I don't have any good thoughts when it comes to Cleveland because Cleveland is Cleveland. They're going to do Cleveland things. They haven't won since the 60s and probably never will again until they actually draft a quarterback right because they had the opportunity to draft Deshaun Watson the first time. They had the opportunity to draft Patrick Mahomes, and they didn't do any of those. So it just shows you what is in that front office and the lack of um, ability to see talent in the front office that they have. And Shador is villainized for, having a father and having parents in his life and being able to speak individual as an individual instead of like a quarterback and speak as a teammate. Even though most people say he's a teammate, I mean, a great teammate, and nobody has come around and said otherwise. But the narrative is going to be painted that way because they look at Deion Sanders like they looked at LeVar Ball, and they look at those guys like, oh, they're overbearing parents. But that's just because they're there. If this was the counterparts, the white counterparts, they wouldn't say that. So it's very interesting that the NFL always takes this angle because we know that NFL is the good old boys club. And I say this all the time. If I had a son that was playing football, I wouldn't want him to play because of the NFL. It's because of the nature of what football is. It's a microcosm of the United States and America. You know your place. You got to know your place, and if you don't know your place, they'll put you in it. And that's what the NFL has come to be, and that's what America is. So it's no different. So the things that Shador has went through, and especially last game when they gave him the wrong wristband, so he wasn't working off the right plays, and then that game just looked terrible when I watched it because when I saw him reaching out to the sideline and had to call a timeout, I didn't know what was going on. But after the game, they admitted that he had the wrong wristband. Now, who made that mistake? Just don't make sense because all the quarterbacks should have the same wristband. So I don't know how you would get the wrong wristbands, but it just seems very sabotaging that they're doing this. But that's no difference than what everybody else is saying. And of course, the league is not going to intervene because the league colluded in the first place for him to be a fifth round pick, especially when he was projected to be a first rounder. So I don't put anything past this league, and it's one of those leagues that set you up for failure, especially when you're not seen in the best light. But we know that Shedeur will still keep trying to strive for greatness and keep trying to get that starting role. And I just hopefully he can get out of Cleveland because the NFL is just one of those avenues of life where you can't just really defeat. Have you ever been to a car dealership lately? The predatory nature of it, the false facade that they give you. The dealership is just like the NFL. They'll give you this false facade of where you can strive and where you can get opportunities and do what you want. But at the end of the day, you're going to get effed over. And somebody told me before that everyone is effed over at entry point. Now, I think it's a little bit different. Everyone without the resources and connections and like ability is effed over at entry um, at any avenue in this world. But it's just what Shador is going through now. So tell me what your thoughts about Shador in this NFL situation is. Until next time, I'll see you next time.